Hello and welcome to Sass Bites. This is your weekly bite of Sass during your lunch break. Sassy's Chef is bringing you some fun talk today about visual regression testing. As always, you can follow us down there at Sass Bites at Mike Godbolt for updates and links and general craziness. But we're continuing on this path of building up this project, building up this kind of this theme of components and extendables and all that. And one thing we wanted to do with it in the architecture of this theme is to add some visual regression testing. We looked at it last week of how you can use it. You can run the tests, and then it compares the visual diffs of the component from before to after. So it creates a baseline of the image, and then after you make changes, you run the test again. It creates a new image and compares the two together. It just actually takes a snapshot of the screen inside Phantom.js, compares the two together to see if anything's visually changed, which is really great when you have a larger system that has lots of components and you make some random code change, maybe you're just refactoring or fixing something, and you want to just make sure that you can run this again and nothing broke. Like, it's all the same. Actually, I just had that happen today. I was like, I wish I had visual regression testing set up because I just made some changes and I'm pretty sure it didn't break anything, but it's kind of hard to know sometimes. So that's what it allows you to do. What we're going to talk about today is kind of the interface of that. What we're using currently is Phantom CSS, which is kind of the entire Bower framework that runs all the tests and runs inside of Grunt and those kind of things. It uses a couple technologies. One is Phantom.js, which is your headless browser. So it actually spins up a WebKit-ish browser to run stuff in. But the other thing it uses is Casper.js. That's kind of what we're going to take a look at today, is Casper.js and what it contributes to this whole tool chain. Because Casper allows us to interact with the browser, allows us to change pages, allows us to click on things, change viewport sizes, and all those types of things. So we're going to look at Casper.js a little bit and look at some commands. And as I said last week, we're actually missing a test in one of our, missing some test coverage in one of our components. So we're going to go ahead and show that today. So let's make sure I've got the right screen going on. Yes, there we go. Cool. So first thing I want to show off is Casper.js. Casperjs.org, great little site. As you can tell, it's a navigating, scripting, and testing utility for Phantom.js and Slimer. So that's the other great thing. Phantom.js is WebKit, Slimer is Gecko. So if you need to, I'm going to totally just kill my email. So if you need to be able to test both, to test in WebKit, or if that's your preference, then you don't have to worry about that. It'll work for either one. So Casper.js, now to distract myself, if we jump to documentation, kind of the big stuff that we're going to be using is in our API documentation. There is all these different ones. Things like the mouse module we're going to be looking at today, how you can use mouse to click and mouse to move and double clicking. So these are kind of some of the functions and the way that you use Casper to interact with the page after you've built it. So let's go ahead and I don't want to jump. I just don't want to make this about documentation here. This is where you can find it. But let's go ahead and look at our example and see what we need to do and how we do it. So as I said last week, we are testing this right here. We can test the visualness of it, that the space between the title and the name are correct, that the size of the font's correct, the image is in the right place, gutters are correct, all that. So visually we can test all that. What we weren't testing though is this hover state. The hover state is currently under an underline. Whether you like that or not, doesn't matter. This is a testing. And we don't have a test that makes sure that that's consistent. Because if underline is the way that we denote links, we need to make sure that thing always works. And this probably isn't the biggest deal because not many people are going to be pulling off underlines, but you never know. So what we want to do is write some tests or add to our test suite to make sure that we capture that. So let's just go ahead and dive into building that. Let me see my code here. Cool. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go here. So I'm going to walk through this real quick just so you can kind of see what's happening with Casper. Casper then open is a series of open statements. So we've had more open statements before. So it's open this page, then open this page. So we're actually opening the page on localhost pointing to that. We know this is consistent because that this URL has been provided to us by Grunt, so that's good. And then you have all these then statements. So if you just gulp it all, you kind of like, just chain all these things together. Casper kind of gives us that as well. So we then do this, then do that, then do that. So you just kind of chain them all together. So our first then is we just wrap it in a function, and we can set the viewport, and then we take a screenshot. That's really all we're doing there. The screenshot takes several values, but the two main values that we pass in are the selector, and you can see this is a class because of the dot. You can pass in ID if you need to, or just a regular tag or whatever, or even a data attribute or CSS3 selector, like nth child and those kind of things. So like if you have multiple and you want to click the second one, you could do do something like that, and it'll click the second one. One thing to note, it always picks the first one it comes to. So if you have 5 blog teasers on the page, it's going to grab the first one in that list. Just kind of handy to know. It's actually kind of nice because you can have multiple on the page, but you always test in the top one. Anyway, the second part here is what the file is going to be named when it pops over. So when you run the tests, it creates a snapshot as a PNG. What happens to that snapshot? It gets dropped in the folder with that name. So we're going to do then. So it'll do that, and then it'll do this. It's going to change the viewport to 1000 by 1000. So it's going to stretch it out. That first one is the width. So 400 by 1000, 400 wide, 1000 tall. Second one is 1000 wide by 1000 tall, just a big window. We do have a max, like a max width of the main container here. So we could put 2000, and it's not going to change the size of the image. But really, just keep the fact is it's going to run this way consistently every time. So whatever value you choose, it's going to make sure that's consistent. So the images are the same. So we'll do the same thing here. We're going to select the blog teaser, and we're going to take another snapshot, but this is the desktop one. So what we want to do is we need to add an additional test coverage to check when the title, that link title, is actually hovered over. So what we're going to do is we're just going to chain this. So I'm going to do a return and do a dot and say then, then function. Cool. So we've basically just kind of created that same. We just create a then function and then put this down at the bottom. We just need to make sure this colon always ends up at the end. So we don't need to change the viewport, but we can always specify it just to be clean in case we need to move stuff around. But the next thing we need to do is a click. And I believe you can do this mouse click. You can also just do this click. You can see that in documentation. This click is what I've been doing in the past. So I'm just going to do that because I know it works. I tested it. And then we're just going to pass in the selector of what we want. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm totally jumping. I just wanted to point out that you can use click. And if we had something that needed to be clicked on, so obviously if we click on the title, nothing's going to happen. But I know in our current project, we're testing tabs. So you have multiple tabs, and you want to test. If I click on the second tab, does it actually change the view? Does the tab change? Does the content change? And so in that case, we've got our tabs, whatever the tab's going to be called. And then here we're definitely using the nth child, like we're clicking on the third tab, and then we're going to, come on, let's see. We got that, and there we go. And then we can call this one a third tab clicked. So that's an example. If you need to, oh, sorry, this is completely wrong. That needs to go on the bottom. All right, we click it. I didn't practice this one before. And then you can do a screenshot of it. Yes, that's right. Cool. And then you do a screenshot of it, third tab clicked. So that's one way that you can use the testing to make sure that your UI is working, all the JavaScript is working. Then when you click on that third tab, that the tab changes, the content below changes, and all those types of things. So that's an awesome little bit that Casper allows you to do to interact with things. So if you have like drop downs and whatnot, that allows you to do that. Now, click is something you can typically do in JavaScript, or change the click state or something like that. One thing you can't purely do in JavaScript is actually hover over something. And that's really where it's awesome that Casper allows us to do exactly that. So we're going to do a mouse move. In this case, you might be able to do .move. Again, I've done it with .mouse move, and it worked for me. So we're just going to continue to do that. But what this does is actually moves the mouse inside of Phantom.js. And this is kind of the key. Like with JavaScript, you can't make something appear hovered. At least from what I read, it just doesn't provide that for security purposes or whatever, I don't know. But in Phantom.js, it does have an actual virtual mouse in there that we can move around with Casper.js. So this mouse move allows us to do that. You can use particular selectors, or you can also pass in numbers to these as well as with a click. So if I had a particular place on the page that I wanted to click, like 400 pixels by 400 pixels at the little XY location on the page, I could do that. So if I just need to click on some arbitrary place on the page for whatever reason, if there's not a selector or something, you can do that. But in this case, we know we have a selector, this blog teaser link, and we know that's where we want to click. And for consistency, I'll do this. And so we can pass that through. So we're going to move the mouse to the blog teaser link, which is this guy here. And then we're going to take a screenshot. So let's put that down here. We're taking a screenshot of that entire thing again. We just wanted to do the entire example. I guess we could just screenshot the teaser link, but might as well just grab the whole blog teaser so we can see the whole context of it. And we can do link hover or something like that. So one thing to note is we're not testing mobile. We're not testing that that this also happens in mobile. Well, for one, we usually don't hover in mobile context unless we just have a tiny little screen or something like that. And two, we're not expecting the difference. We're not expecting it to be different in each state. That's the way we've built it. That's just how the style works, regardless of where it's at. If we did have some kind of particular cases where we needed to test both things, we can do that. It's really just about test coverage and how complete you want to be. I mean, we could certainly test this on mobile too, and we could test it at a bunch of different breakpoints, but this test coverage seems good enough to get us what we need. So I'm going to go ahead and run grunt test. And yeah, we're good. And it's going to spin that up. It's going to throw us a bunch of false positive errors, which I still need to clean up because obviously I haven't done that. And when we're done, we're going to get a bunch of baselines. It looks like they're done. So we've got our normal desktop one here that we had from last time. We have our mobile. And then we also have link hover. Yay, it worked. Love it. So what we're able to do is within Phantom.js, we use Casper to move the mouse to that location and then take a snapshot of it. And of course, that's a real simple example, but you can see where this goes with some more complex components where, like if you have, say we have a mobile drop-down menu. This is something that actually we did have to build, where you can chain these things together of like, click on this, then click on this, then take a snapshot. So if I needed to, first click on something, let's grab that real quick. So this, click, and again on those tabs or something like that. Tabs, hold one. No, for actually two probably, because the first one's probably already selected. We can have it go click on that tab and then go move the mouse over to something and then test it. So that's a great example with a drop-down navigation we did. We have to go and click on the drop-down navigation. Okay, the drop-down's open. And now we need to go and, click on one. Okay, then we did that. And then we need to go and hover over something. So you can write your test, actually walk through a lot of those UI steps. And one thing to note is you could, these are all sequential, like nothing resets after each one. So if I was to do this up here, I clicked on the tab up on this top one, and it took a picture, and then moved and took a picture. That tab would still be active. So the second tab would already have been clicked. So in our case, we go like, click on the hamburger menu, take a screenshot. Click on the second tab, take a screenshot. Hover over the third tab, take a screenshot. So we can just do those sequentially, then, and get all those different images we need. So that when we go back and run the test, it runs through all the steps again, which allows you to check the styles, allows you to check the JavaScript, allows you basically just to make sure the entire component's working all visually. Obviously there's some JavaScript tests you could probably do to check some of that stuff as well. But on the visual layer, we want to make sure that all those styles are working. that when you click on something, it changes the class. That class actually does what it's supposed to do. So that's Casper. It allows us to write these functions that are pretty easy to read, for one. I mean, the read is like, then change the viewport and then move the mouse, then take a picture. So very simple to read, not too tough to write, and you can get some pretty complex chains going. You can even, there's a way to actually perform JavaScript on the page. So if you need to take a picture and then change a class or change a data state and then take another picture, you can actually perform, basically inject some JavaScript onto the page as well. I don't have an example here, but you can check in the docs for that. I think it's Invoke or something. But anyway, that's Casper.js. It allows us to interact with our pages so that we can take pictures in the right states that we need to, so we can open modals and we can click on buttons and we can pretty much test not just how it first shows up on the page, but how it reacts as we continue to interact with that UI element. So that's Casper.js, that's Phantom CSS. I don't think I'm going to dive too much more into this as we're going to be starting up a new series next year as more of a kind of interview series on front-end architecture. So if you have questions about this, please feel free to ping me. I'm really curious. This is still pretty brand new for me and for us and really for a lot of people out there. So I'd love to hear how it's working, what kind of struggles you run into, and also success stories. Love to hear those as well. So if I can find the close button, there we are. Awesome. Thanks for stopping by for another episode of Sass Bites. We will see you. I might try maybe get one more in next week, the week after. Actually, with holidays, it gets a little crazy. So if I don't see it, I'll definitely see it at the beginning of next year. We'll start into a series on front-end architecture with some special guests. So it's going to be a whole ton of fun. So keep your eye out for that. Follow us at Sass Bites on Twitter, and you'll be able to see more information about that as it comes around. So thanks again. Happy holidays, and we'll catch you later.